Welcome to Filipino Basics. Today we're going to learn about sentence construction. Finally, we're here. But first, like any good language learner, we must learn some vocabulary. We got here sorbetes, which means ice cream. Can you say it with me? Sorbetes. Then we got bola, which means ball. You notice the difference between how I say bola and ball? Just to give you a comparison, I'm going to pronounce it flipped. Bola. Bol. That's the difference. Bola. You pronounce it as bola. Kain. To eat. Some people pronounce this as kain. That's a more colloquially thing. But, for all purposes right now, it's kain. Next is calle, which means street. Calle. Next is tindahan, which means store. And I believe that's all the vocabulary. Let's jump into the real thing now, shall we? So, you know how in English we use the SVO pattern, right? The subject, verb, and then object. Took the liberty of color coding which is which, that way you would be able to see the pattern. See, a lot of people think grammar is really difficult because they can't see the pattern. But if they see the pattern, they will understand. So, let's look at this. I color coded it. This is the subject, this is the verb, this is the object. In English, we arrange it this way, in that fashion, like so. I ate ice cream. This is the best example of how sentence patterns work. Because as you can see, plain as day, super basic, the subject is in the front, then goes the verb, then goes the object. But in Filipino, we use VSO, like so. Kumain ako ng sorbetes. Now, a lot of people will argue that you can use SVO pattern for this. You can. Ako ay kumain ng sorbetes. But keep in mind, not a lot of people really do that. Unless it's being taught in schools, we don't really use that in everyday life. We don't use SVO in our daily lives. Though grammatically speaking, SVO can work. But practically speaking, nobody speaks SVO. Or at least no native speaker, no natural speaker ever does that. We're going to look at some markers. Markers are a bunch of words that are used to identify this, identify that. Ang is a topic marker. It's kind of like the. Actually, you know what? It's a direct translation. Ang is the. Ang gubat, the forest, right? Pretty easy. Si is yes in Spanish, but si is topic marker that prefixes a name. It's a marker of person. I think only Filipino has this. Who knows? But in Filipino, whenever we try to refer to someone, when we try to emphasize that the person who does the action is the specific person, or really if we use the person as the topic of the sentence, we prefix it with si. For example, si Juan or John. Mga refers to a large group of something. Mga. When you say mga, you refer to a large group of something, It could be people, it could be things, it could be food, but mga is basically an all-around word. It's an all-around marker for large group of anything. Plural. It's basically a plural pronoun, I guess. I don't know. Mga bola, like so, or mga tao, mga kotse, mga damit. Nang is an object marker. An object marker, for those who don't know, is a marker in a sentence that marks the thing, either a living thing or a non-living thing that receives the action. So, for example, kumain ng sorbetes. What did you do? Kumain. To whom or to what did you do that action to? Sorbetes. So, in English, it would be, what did you do? You ate. And who is the victim of that action? The ice cream. So, in Filipino, we have object marker. It's kind of similar to the o particle in Japanese. Aisukurimu o taberu. That kind of functions the same thing, but the difference is the grammar. Sa is a location marker. It's kind of like it's an all-around location marker. Like how in English you have the words in, out, over the basically on top. Like in Filipino, you can get away with just using sa. Or though to be specific, you can kind of modulate you can kind of add a specific location to your word after sa. So for example, sa bahay or at house, it could mean in the house, it could mean at the house, it could mean on the house. It depends on the context, but if you want to say specifically in the house, you're going to say sa loob ng bahay. Loob means inside. And you see we use the nang. Next is I. I is. I'm pretty sure it's a direct translation at this point. It's how you say things. That easy. Si Carlos ay kumain. Carlos ate. You see that I ooh, wow. Did I? Yep, I totally color coded correctly. No, no errors there. I'm so amazing. A lot of people get confused in nang versus nang. It's so easy. Even for someone who speaks naturally as me, like I grew up speaking Tagalog and I've never got confused with nang versus nang. That's a lie, but it's pretty easy to figure it out. You see, nang is an object marker. It's simply That's simply it. That's simply it. So for example, that's it. The kumain ako ng sorbetes. That's where you use nang. Here, it's pronounced the same, but if you're not gonna get confused. I'm just gonna say this: when you're talking to people, you're not gonna get confused because you're not gonna see these words. What you're gonna hear is nang, and depending on the context, you would know which word is it. So nang is an object marker, and nang with the with the letter a and the extra n is a temporal conjunction. For example, kumakain ako nang marinig ko yung bell. I was eating when I heard the bell. That's the difference. A lot of people still get confused. Don't be. Okay? So let's talk about existence verb. Mayroon is an existence verb, meaning that you can't say that mayroon means to exist. That's not. I don't think there's a direct translation for this. But the closest translation that we can get is saying there is, which is not a singular word, right? So the best we can do is approximate what mayroon means. It's an existence verb, right? So there's a little bit of parallel between these. There's a little parallel between this and Japanese. You see, in Japanese we have aru and iru. This is kind of like that, except you don't differentiate between living and non-living. Mayroon is simply an existence verb. There is. It doesn't directly translate to exist. Rather, it tells you what exists. It tells you that something exists. It tells you that something is in there, that there is this specific thing that exists within our spatial temporal continuum. You get it? For example, mayroong aso sa kalye. There's a dog on the street. It does not say a dog exists on the street. Rather, it says that there is a dog on the street. It's an existence verb instead of it just directly translates to exist, which is wrong. By the way, just a little fun fact. A lot of people will get confused on the sentence pattern of Filipino. You know how it's weird that how this goes first. I mean, it can't. Some English sentences start with a verb like this. There's a dog on the street. Verb is right here, right, and then the subject, and then the object. So, it's really not that difficult to adjust, especially if you've watched Star Wars. You know how Yoda kind of speaks backwards, kind of speak weird, like to the path of light you want to go. Concentrate, your mind should. I guess you could say that his grammar is Filipino. I don't know. I really don't know why I tried to put this fact away, but I don't even know if that's accurate. What I do want to say is simply we have to we have to reset every expectation we have of making sentences when learning a new language, because this is very different from English. English speakers are used to speaking in SVO, and this is not SVO, this is VSO. So all you have to do is you have to follow the grammar, the rules of the game of this slang. By the way, notice how this has the letter G and this doesn't. We're gonna talk about that in the future lessons. But until then, just trust me, this is not a typo. So we're now gonna apply this. Using what we learned, this is the sample sentence. I went to the store. Using these words, can you create the sentence? I'll give you time. Notice that I have color coded it, so it will be easier for you to translate it. You can pause the video, by the way, until you figure it out. And when you finally had a euphoric sense of saying something like Excelsior or Eureka, you can play the video back again and you can check the correct answer, in which I will show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Pumunta ako sa tindahan. Remember, the pattern is VSO. So you see, all we did was arrange. Why am I pointing to the screen? I literally have a laser pointer. So you can see that this has the SVO configuration, and well, simply what we're gonna look at how it works, right? So the way location marking works in English kinda does the same here, although there's no the. Pumunta ako sa tindahan at pumunta ako sa ang tindahan. When you show locations like that, you don't need to use the in Filipino sentences. But notice, all we did really, I gave you already the words. All you needed to do really is to just arrange it in a way that works for Filipino. Next, I'm gonna give you this one. This one is gonna be a little harder. Based on what we have learned in our vocabulary earlier, and based on what we learned in grammar just now, can you translate this? Again, you can just pause. Assuming you have answered, or assuming you gave up, this is the answer. May aso. Now the rest of the word is gone. Well, yeah, but you can say my aso, and it would still mean the same as mayroong aso. Different paths to the same destination. What basically what this is this is a shortening abbreviation, I guess. I don't know if this is formal or informal or whatever, but what's important is knowing that this works. You don't need to say mayroong aso every time. You can say may aso. In fact, a lot of people don't even mind grammar in the Philippines. Surprise, surprise, it's because we all have lives. We all just want to be able to communicate with people the easiest way possible. So it's okay to be a little slang, to be a little pejorative, you know? It's not that big a deal. And that's it for the lesson. I hope you learned something. I hope you actually practice this, and if you like it, well, I guess thank you. Well, wait for lesson 3 because we are going to talk about something important in that lesson. Until then, class is dismissed.